Hello, hello, and welcome in, everybody. Welcome to your reading today. So timely. Just when I started reading this, I listened to Good Life Radio while I stream and while I read, because it just gets me in like a vibe, a good kind of like concentration vibe. Anywho, the reason why I'm saying that is because the song playing is called Take You Home, and it just feels like this life, we get very caught up in it and we forget where we're really from, which is source. In my mind, anyway. All right, so welcome to your reading. Today, we're going to do a reading as to why you incarnated into this specific life in this timeline right now. So we'll get to it. Pick 3 piles and take whichever one's calling to you. Did a little meditation on what to do this reading on, and it fired up so much. It's only a very quick meditation, but it was very clear of what kind of reading this should be about. I was like, but I think this might help. I feel like it will help. Just to understand why you're here. Maybe you could see it as like part of your purpose, or one of the reasons you have incarnated, or maybe even part of your contract. Whatever that may be, take it as a sign to assist you on your journey, not something that defines it. You define your journey. You define it. Okay. So let's take a look at your piles. So for pile number 1, you have Goddess Sekmet and the Fire Agate with Passion of the Lion Heart. Here is your card. These are really pretty cards, I have to say that. Really nice cards. For pile number 2, you have Ascended Master Mataji and Crimson Cuprite, Relief and Repair. That's for you, pile 2. And for pile number 3, you have Ascended Master Mother Mary and Celestite with Unconditional Trust. Okay, so these are going to be your 3 piles for today. Feel free to take your time with this, meditate even, or just pause the video and see which one really calls to you. For pile 1, 2, and 3, maybe you want to watch all 3. Maybe there's 2 that call out to you. What I'll do is I'll leave the description, the information for each pile, timestamps, in the description below, and you can jump straight to your video. So I'll leave you now. Hello, hello, pile number 1. Welcome to your reading today. So you have chosen the Goddess Sekmet and Fire Agate with Passion of the Lion Heart. It's a really nice card here. Pop that here if I have space. Pop the eye. Alright, so let's draw some cards for you. So why did you incarnate in this particular timeline, this lifetime? The specificity of the card you've chosen just feels, whatever it is, everyone's going to have different purposes and reasonings to come into this life. However, this is like very specific. It feels like you've come here for many things. However, one of the main goals might come through in this reading. It's like a very specific goal, or at least a hint at what that is. Actually, let's start with your tarot oracle first, and then we'll get onto your tarot. Alright, so you've also got gelling, the gelling card. This is interesting because this feels very Green Man for some reason. I don't know if that's exactly what this place is, because this is the sacred places, or sacred sites, and just by looking at it, it looks very runic. Like it feels like there's a lot of runes, so it could be Norwegian, Scandinavian area, somewhere like that. That's where this is coming through. Those two crows remind me of Odin. So very interesting. I'm not getting too much. I'll have to sit with this one, actually. The sun and the moon, like the directions. It kind of looks like you're here due to some kind of separation or some kind of split. I don't know if that's with you or with the people you're around, or maybe even the planet kind of going in different directions. You're here as like a notifier, it feels. Like you're spreading the word of something. You're here to not convince or make people change their minds. You're here to share information, and what they do with it is up to them. It's like a courageous energy that's coming through. Okay, interesting. Yeah, this is what you're sharing, the divine plan, number 17. One of my favorite numbers. So really interesting. Yeah, it does feel like you're here to share information or share like knowledge, or like, hey, there's more to life than just what you're experiencing or what you think you're experiencing, right? Because we can say, oh, the world's in turmoil and all this. There's, I don't know how many billions of people, billions and billions of people. They're a small population that are in like war zones, let's say. Doesn't mean everyone's in like perfect peace and harmony everywhere else, but it doesn't mean that just because we see what's on the news over and over and over again, or in newspapers or whatever, you know, online, we're only really getting pieces and bits and pieces of the story. Within those stories that we watch, and also within the entire world, there's so much more out there that's occurring, and not everyone is in those situations. That doesn't mean we ignore it. It just means that we know what else is there. There's not just this situation and this situation. There's a whole broader prospect. And I think you're here to assist with, one, understanding that for yourself in this incarnation, and how you relate to it, and what energies are impacting you, and how you impact others. I don't know if you need to necessarily do anything, like you don't have to start up a blog or something and tell everyone your story. However, what you do and how you are as a person radiates from you to them. Does it make sense? It's like your energy field has information, and where you go, it just kind of by osmosis goes through the other people and gets them to start thinking a little bit differently, or start to like question certain things. Nothing wrong with questioning. So believe that this is part of your purpose, or why you came to Earth. I feel like you had a calling. Passion of the Lionheart just now with this right next to it makes me think you were kind of asked by Source, like, do you want to go down? There's like an alert, help humanity, something like that. And you're like, sure. And then they're like, well, it's going to be tough, you know, it's not going to be easy. And they're like, yeah, it'll be fine. Maybe you have incarnated here or not. You probably had other lives, or maybe you've just always been with Source. Who knows? That's going to be whatever kind of like feels right to you. Regardless, same kind of journey coming here to impart some knowledge, maybe without actually having to be in those positions, just naturally, subconsciously. So living your life normally, or as normal as a human life is, right? And just being able to radiate that. But this is whatever you're called to. This is whatever you're called to. That's why this courage feels like you were fine where you were. You were good. You didn't have to do this. But you had a big heart and came down to do this for others. So, you know, I feel like there's a lot of appreciation you should have for yourself as well. Infinite abundance. Right. You can see here where this kind of feminine etheric being is. It's like absorbing. It feels like absorbing the energy. It's really interesting. I'm assuming empath might be this. Also, you being able to connect with source is very much here. I know it talks about infinite abundance, and it does feel like there's. I don't know if it's like infinite. It's not like. I mean, yes, it is infinite. So there's two ways of looking at this, and I think if you look at it from like infinite, like huge amounts of something or too much of something, like material, that's not really how this is talking about. It's talking about infinite abundance as an infinite energy. It's kind of like if you were a flower or like a plant, right? There's almost like infinite amount of sunlight during the day, pending weather, right? But a lot of energy coming through, and it feels like it's infinite. You don't need all of it. You can't absorb all of it. You don't need to absorb all of it, but there's enough. And so this feels like having enough of a foundation on certain things. Maybe you came into a life to kind of shift some stuff within a family unit or like a soul family that kept cycling on stuff, and you're not maybe part of that soul family, but you were here to kind of move that and then just live from there, overcoming whatever you overcame in earlier years. But having enough, being able to provide and have enough, not surplus and maybe too much, let's say, even though it does feel like that's true. But I think because we're humans, we think of surplus as in like millions of dollars in the bank. It doesn't feel like that. It feels like enough energy to create what you need and get what you need out of life, and so that you can show just by being you and just living your life that everyone else around you and even people that you walk past in supermarket or street can kind of feel that in some way. It just takes like a little bit of energy to like switch your mind. It's really interesting. Hopefully that makes sense. Infinite abundance feels like, yeah, lots of money, but it doesn't feel like material. It feels like infinite love and light of source. There's also aspects of like abilities and also part of you learning something here too. You're not just sacrificing, so to speak, or selflessly coming through to assist. I think in general that is true, but there's also growth here for you as well. And growth isn't always easy, right? All right, sharing the divine plan. That's so cool. I like that. Okay, so let's take a look at your tarot cards. These out of the way. Now some of these might come through reversed. I am going to flip them upright. Just feels right for this reading. Oh, that one really wants to come through. Might have to squeeze. All right, we're gonna pull these ones and then I'll take a look at the smaller light Seers tarot as well. All right, you've got the King of Cups. Feels like in some sense, I feel like for some reason, in some sense, you have awoken to certain aspects of this. Doesn't mean you're going to like awaken everything, but you're going to awaken enough of your remembrance of who you are as a soul, or whatever you want to call it, as a part of source, to be able to complete what you need to complete or know about what you need. I don't think you necessarily even needed to know everything. I think you're probably going to get more information than maybe even you planned for. And that's good, like for our incarnation, but I don't think it matters too much to the progress and purpose of you incarnating at this time. It's kind of very clear already with these cards of why you incarnated, or one of your main purposes of incarnating. We might get more little bits of information, or it might even out and make sense to some with the rest of the cards. The kings, so many kings. They were all reversed. Thought so, that's why I was flipping them that way. Okay, so what I see here with kind of drooping down. What I see with these 4 cards, sorry, is with these 2 kings in here, it's really seeing people for who they are and the reality, dealing with, like, maybe you dealt with this too, and I think with you overcoming certain challenges that maybe 100 years ago people would not have even tested or tried. It's like you've come in to find this compassionate energy, and I feel like instead of being in lack, which 4 of this doesn't necessarily mean that, but it's very like keeping things towards self, so you've got enough for what you need in life. And I feel like it's finding that balance between, can I do this to spark inspiration and passion or enjoyment in life, enjoy, but also emotional maturity. There's like whatever your aura is kind of generating, it may be to heal some of these figures that you may have faced. This kind of does feel like masculine figures. Definitely here to spark new inspiration for sure. This fire passion and this little cute fire elemental does feel like you're here to bring in passion. Now, fire and this light is about passion, courage, and the spark of inspiration, right? That new way of doing things. And in the shadow, it's like getting burning who's around you, stubbornness, anger as well. So potentially you might have dealt with that. And whatever you've overcome, you've been able to overcome through your own hard work and the people around you, if there were people to support you afterwards, during, whenever. It's really, really been testament to not keep it in and keep it grounded in earth. That doesn't have to be part of your imprint. So you don't have to necessarily talk about it if you don't want to. However, it does feel that what you've overcome will help others overcome it. I know it might be hard to understand through like osmosis, but it does feel like that, like energetical osmosis. It's like when you are in a theater or something and you see someone and they might not be acting anything, but you might be able to feel their energy in some way, and you just know that something might not be right, and you talk to them or whatever, that kind of thing. It's kind of like, well, how did you know? You didn't know. They weren't showing any facial signs, they talk about cold reading and that kind of thing. Sometimes you don't get all the hints. Sometimes people can just know, and that's because the empath kind of energy is being tapped into. So even if you do or don't talk to them, I feel like that connection still helps in some way. All right, let's see. Why are you incarnated in this particular time? It does feel like we are going through a shift as well as humanity. So makes sense coming here for this, like for you coming down for this. Yeah, it does feel like showing people that they can have the things that they want. You might be someone in the family who's kind of broke free of old cycles or old limitations or something like that, and really you have kind of broken a whole group of, it does feel like, I don't know if this resonates exactly, but it does feel like you've gone into a family, broken a pattern, you might have been the first to go to university or to buy the first house, and all these other people in the family could have done that. They just didn't feel that it was possible in their circumstances for whatever reason. And you didn't have any problem with that. You just went through and worked and did what you needed to do to start these things and just show. And I feel like the next generations within the wider family even will pick up on that. So, you know, it feels like you've done part of this, like you're already working or you're on the path of doing this. You might think it's nothing, because I was like, yeah, but that was easy. May not have been easy for that soul group, may not have been easy for that family to break out of that. And you'll probably know why. So, you know, take pride in that. Take pride in what you've already accomplished and achieved. Yeah, look at these. The Ace of Pentacles, definitely, like, you know, the 10 and the Ace. It's like the ending and beginning, being able to create and build upon more. Even just finding bliss in life. Some people don't believe that that's possible. Peace out of their day. You know, I don't know, you've been able to do this. I feel like you've been able to do this and you're still working on it, creating it, because you're still here. So there'll always be things to look at and improve on, or even help and support. But it feels like what you've done is already enough, more than enough, something like that. Finding emotional maturity and being able to build upon that year by year, day by day. Yeah, I feel like with the 10 of Wands, there is a lot of release, or a lot of baggage that has been broken, like a lot of release that you've already done. This may, like, depending on where you are in your journey, because this is a picker pile, right? So collectively, many people could have chosen this pile. I do feel like you have already worked on a lot of this, and some are still working on it, and some are already at the door of working on this. So wherever you are, it's not about judgment. Doesn't matter about your age or anything like that. Just know you've overcome many things, and the quote-unquote aftermath of whatever this could be, some of them are just all sorts of different challenges, right? Many different things. So I feel like you've been able to break through and clear a lot of it, especially if it's family related, if you know what that is about, like ancestral karma or something like that, like an ancestral thing. Being able to help them overcome their own, even if they don't do anything necessarily in this lifetime, they've been able to see you go from where you were to where you are, and that helps the soul. Interesting. And then on to the next. It's like, yeah, like, even though this is the end of the last card in the reading, it does feel like you've come here for a very specific reading. Like, you're ending with fire. You know, you started with fire. A lot of fire, fire, fire. And these 4 here are all fire. And then we've got some pentacles and the cup here with the king. But the three of wands is almost like this hippie soul that's come down and been like, yeah, I'll help. Gone into the life, whoa. And then once you've done here, you may continue on with like certain lives and whatever's to happen in the future. However, I feel like you'll be waiting for the next wave. It's almost like you're like, yeah, let's take the next challenge, because it's like exhilarating. So, you know, obviously up to you when you depart, but it does feel like what's the next kind of wave to catch. It does feel exciting. I feel like that's why the Passionate Lionheart's like the go-getter. So you might not have come down into this particular life with the go-getter attitude, but that feels like your soul. It does feel like the let's go do this. Let's just go for it. Which is interesting when we come down here and we're like, oh, this is not it. You know, the density of Earth, especially if you have come from a more higher realm, like in your last kind of incarnation. I mean, you'll know if you follow that or not. But definitely being able to start like this infinite abundance right next to the 10, you've been able to shift a lot already within your surroundings, the people you surround yourself with. You might even notice that. Sometimes you don't even notice that. You just do. You just live your life, and other people will be like moving on. I remember getting a message from someone who was like, wow, you really helped my son get through this and go out and start to relive life and look for a job and like do the stuff. And I was like, I didn't do anything. I just like lived my life. I turned up, didn't have a job because I moved to countries, and he was living there with his dad, and I was living in their like shed. And I was like, okay, I need to find a job. So I found a job, right? And started going out, and we started like partying as well and just having fun and that kind of thing. But it was back in the day. And yeah, I think he got kind of like inspired by that in some way. But all I was doing was I just had clear goals. I knew I needed a job because there was no benefit because I'm not on a like, I'm not a Australian national. So I had to find some work. I had to do this. I had to do that. There were certain things I had to click in and then go. And I think that really helped him. But yeah, I mean, this is probably you in a nutshell as well. You just doing you and inspiring people. Doesn't mean you always have to be like, oh, I have to do this, I have to be a teacher. You don't have to do anything that doesn't feel correct to you. Just live your life and you'll inspire others. So really beautiful reading. Thank you very much for being here. Also, thank you so much for getting this reading today. It's a really shows a lot of strength and testament. But yeah, I think you're a little bit of a go-getter. I don't think you're like an adrenaline junkie, like you're not going to any crazy lives. Even though you might think Earth is, and it kind of is in a way. However, this feels like it's calculated and thought out. There probably were times where it was like, this is probably not something I can get through, but you've been able to get through it, and I feel like there's something in here that says that you had a lot of say or calculation in certain people popping up, certain things happening, like a smart soul, probably oldish or wise soul. I feel like a hippie soul for some of you. Regardless, one that has a brain or like a very mindful mind, tactful mind, something like that. But I'll leave this reading here for you. Thank you so much, pile number 1. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next reading. Hello, pile number 2. Welcome to your reading today. So for your reading in regards to why did you incarnate in this time, you have Ascended Master Mataji. I do not know who that is. And you've also got the Crimson Cuprite with Relief and Repair. So interesting card, very clear with what it's talking to. Rest and Resuscitation. Kind of feels like very Four of Swords kind of energy. That, you know, that time after the Three of Swords. So we'll see how this relates to your reading, because it is an interesting one. It is an interesting one. I'm going to pull you some Oracle, and then we'll have a look at those, and then we'll look at the Tarot after that. Okay, so why did pile 2? Okay, getting this one too. Whoops. Okay, that one. So this is a new deck here. This is the Sacred Sites. So it's got places in the world. All right, so you have Devil's Tower with this lovely bear here. It's interesting. I'm not too sure too much. I don't know too much about the Devil's Tower. However, it kind of reminds me of like the shape of like a kind of like a pyramid in a sense. Obviously not the pyramids, but just reminds me of it for some reason. This bear, however, is really touching on hibernation. And so again, pulling it back to the Four of Swords for the like this card energy. Obviously it doesn't look like it's hibernating. It does look kind of defensive. All right, let's have a look at this card. So you also have Atishka. This definitely looks very Sumerian with its like depiction. A lot of fire here too. Interesting. Might have a look at the book just because it's a new deck. I want to make sure I pick up on the card's messages, but there's a interesting energy. They're both like Twilight too, and it feels kind of like dark, or like not negative, but just shadowed or overcasted. Love unconditionally. This is where the power of love is coming through. It does feel like coming through to clear some energy and understand what is true love. What is, like, when I say true love, and I'm not talking about romantic, I'm not even really talking about like you know, a parent and a child or anything else like that. It feels like everything that's energy, anything that's energetical. What does unconditionally mean to you? It's like whatever happens, being able to overcome some challenges. That's how this feels. There's like an energy of overcoming difficulty, and this kind of looks like trial by fire in a sense. Let me take a look at the book. Let me have a look at the Devil's Tower. It's on page 222. Of course it is. Talks about introspection. That makes a lot of sense with introspection. That's why it's like this hibernation kind of energy, even though the bear clearly is not hibernating. But introspection is about checking in with self, understanding, and that's where the Four of Swords, which it just keeps popping up in my head, and the rest and repair, that kind of energy. It's showing me like the imagery of the Four of Swords that I get is from this deck, the Light Seers, which is this woman in a nest, like she's like back home, or like in her safety nest. I guess that's how you could word it. So it's somewhere where it's like safe, that you can just be for a while and let whatever feelings and thoughts and emotions process, release, or whatever, you know, whatever you need to do. So it's interesting that this life has that in there. This life has come through with introspection of potentially introspection of why you've been incarnating, where you have been incarnating, why this life, why it's more like not why this life, it's more like why all these other lives. Has there been a cycle, or has there been like a cycle of this popping up all the time in your soul group or certain people, and it just keeps going and going. It's like many lives, and it's like, okay, I'll come back as this, you come back as that, I'll be the father, you be the mother this time, we'll see if this works. You know what I mean? It's like just in a cycle. And it's learning a valuable lesson. It's like a lesson of unconditional love. I like how this is love unconditionally. So this isn't just talking about unconditional love like a word. It's like, can you put this into practice in some way? It doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It's not asking for perfection. It's just asking for questioning, especially with the introspection, looking within. Okay. It's interesting too. This feels like it's a great earth energy. And especially if you've had incarnations where you've lost a lot. It can be hard to process that in different ways. I don't know how it works exactly with incarnation and contracts and what you set out to do, especially since this is like a collective reading, this particular pile, of course, as well. I'd have to get like more information about that. But potentially it does feel like there's a great lessons, great challenges, great difficulty in this energy as well. Like a lot of history, if that makes sense. All right, let's have a look at what is it? Ateshka. All right, page 72. This is ignition, and I love that love unconditionally is, you know, in alignment with ignition. So it says here, what of your divine spark? Does the fire of your youth still burn strongly? Are you shining brightly, or has someone extinguished your light? Interesting. It feels like with these 4 cards, you've come back here to re-find yourself, or refine an aspect of yourself that has been ignored or left. That's how I want to word it. What am I doing? Really shuffled these. All right, so give these a good shuffle. Why this incarnation at this time? There is obviously an aspect here of being able to share this with the world as well, but I feel like you've come here for yourself and to help. Like, you know, it's like, oh, I'll do this and I'll do this. I'll do this thing that will help others, but I'll also be working on some stuff that I would like to either experience or process. And I feel like you've come here to re-find yourself. That's as best as I can word it. Just a journey in itself. Whether this is like the first lifetime you've lived or the, you know, millionth. Okay. All right, let's take a look at your tarot cards. I've got the 3 of discs. Okay, interesting. The High Priestess. 10 of discs. And the Sun card. Definitely trying to come here to... It does feel like, I know it sounds silly, rest and recovery when you've come to Earth of all places. But I do feel like there is some part of that to find peace and balance in life after maybe different like breakups, or, you know, different scenarios that have occurred in this life being played out potentially in other lifetimes in different ways, of course, different spirits and souls. However, this kind of finding that within, uncovering the hidden parts of you that has been, I don't know if it's neglected or if it's just been not worked on for so long, it's almost been forgotten. It's like, well, I want to work on my, let's see, I want to work on my struggle with family or something like that. And you've been working on it, it hasn't really like sunk in or paid off. And it's been so many lifetimes, you've kind of forgotten why you're doing it, or what's the reasoning, and what were the other key things that you have within you that could support or help with this particular skill that you're looking at. Working with others definitely does feel like here it definitely involves other people, other souls. Maybe you're working with the same souls that you've worked with in the past. But it is finding peace and harmony with like our younger self and our soul group. It does feel like this feels like soul group. 10 of discs with the sun. So for whatever reason, it feels like soul group, trying to find harmony within that. All right, let's see. Got the 9 of Pentacles. You have the Hermit, makes sense. Does feel like you know, many different paths could go many different ways. One towards like people and one away from people, like just self. Neither is wrong. It's just like what actually feels right. Because Hermit can be great for introspection, like you've got here, and understanding, like what do I want? What do I offer and give out to the world? And also, what can I ask for and accept and take? Because you have to be good at receiving as much as you are as giving. Otherwise, you're blocking the other person from being able to give to you, and vice versa, right? Or whichever way is your block. So it's trying to find that. However, the hermit can also be isolation, an isolationist, because it's like, I came here to help people, but I don't like people. No, not everyone, but like, you know, I don't like a lot of people, or don't like being around too many people. So it's finding that balance. Also got the Ten of Swords. Definitely here to release something, to release an old pattern. It's almost like you don't have to keep cycling on this anymore. This is like the last life where you have to feel like it's a failure when you've already succeeded. Yeah, so you can begin the next anew. It's almost like she's got this crystal in her hand and she's letting it go. She doesn't need to keep cycling with this crystal anymore. The crystal's great and it's giving knowledge and that kind of thing, but if it's not fulfilling a particular purpose of why you came here, then it's time to let go of it. Especially right next to this card, because you don't have to keep cycling. Like, it just feels like, I don't feel like you're actually cycling. There's no like wheel. If the Wheel of Fortune or wheel came in, it would kind of feel like this is definitely a cycle. But something's ruminating and part of you has forgotten or has neglected a certain aspect of self. It could be in a child, right? It could be that. But I feel like it's also seeing the bliss and joy in life as well. This will open up. I feel like this is the last life you'll have to cycle on this, regardless of what you do. It almost feels like, irrespective, it'll be better if you process some of the old stuff and let go of the old, and work on the inner self, because regardless, you're still holding on to this. You still have this. This isn't something you're learning. You've already kind of mastered it in a way. It's just mastering the utilization of your loving energy, finding that spark back in life and that enjoyment of almost that enjoyment of incarnating, in a sense, or what is this life about, finding the joy in life. I hope this all makes sense. I know it was kind of vaguish, but it does feel like, in a nutshell, coming here to heal something, for not to hold on to a particular cycle, and release that into wherever it needs to go, whatever is no longer part of your incarnation contract that needs to go, because there's more out there to find in this lifetime, and there's more out there in the next lifetimes without having to cycle on this. So hopefully that makes sense. Thank you so much for letting me read for you today. Take care of yourself, pile 2, and I'll see you in the next reading. Hello, pile number 3. Welcome to your reading. So, interesting card to come through. You've got Ascended Master Mother Mary and Celestite with Unconditional Trust. Very nice card. So let's see why you have incarnated in this lifetime. Mother Mary, hey? I do like this unconditional trust. It feels like, in another word, faith or belief. But it doesn't feel like belief as in blindly. It's like an inner knowing. It's like an inner trust. So I guess unconditional trust feels true as well. It's a good way of wording that card, honestly. Okay, so why have you incarnated at this time, in this moment? Goodness. Cards are flying in here. Alright, since that one's a jumper, it also looks different. It looks unique. Alright, let's take a look at these cards first. Sorry, little eyeball. All right, so you've got Bighorn. Interesting. That's Sitting Bull, right? From memory. Don't know too much about Native American culture, being grown up in New Zealand and Australia. Don't know too much about, parts of the world, but I'm pretty sure that's Sitting Bull, Bighorn. What I get from this is like, I don't know, it feels like a lot of sacrifice in a sense. It doesn't feel like sacrifice in like a negative way though, but it feels like surrender or sacrifice in some way. I'll have to read the book for this card because this is a new deck. It's about sacred sites and places. So we'll just have a quick look. It's Sioux, right? Is that correct? Someone will probably know more about Native American, but it feels like Sioux tribe. Sioux Native American tribe. 226, all right. This talks about principles. Interesting. So it says here, ask yourself now, have you grown up believing that material success is all that matters? Were you taught that the good life means a fancy car and a big house, regardless of the cost of others and the environment? That's an interesting one. That's a big one. I feel like you're here to teach people a better way of living, in a sense. You probably have been someone who believed that or felt that in some way, because that's what we're taught, right? Especially if you're in the West. Like, it's very much about, especially if in the United States, it's very much like you're only successful with this many followers. I feel like social media has really helped people put it into perspective. It's like, who cares about who follows you? Who cares about that kind of stuff? Who really does care? Who cares about the fancy car and this kind of thing? Of course, it's nice to have these things, but it's not important in the fabric of our life, right? And our incarnation, of course. So I feel like you've kind of been pushed or maybe put in particular positions where it's been all about this. And you can be any kind of worker, right? You can be a lawyer or whatever and still understand the difference between why you're doing it and what's the purpose of it. If you're doing it just for money and nothing else matters and everyone else doesn't, or you're selling something, if you're selling something to someone who really needs it, fantastic. If you're selling something for the sake of making money, whether they need it or not, that's where this is coming in and talking to it. So it's like you may have been on the other side or seen other people like go through a cycle of like, it's all about money. If I don't have this, then I'm nothing. It's like, not at all. You're already everything you need to be. So I feel like you're here to teach in some way, which is tough. I don't know if you necessarily have to do the teaching itself, but there's something here. It's understanding materialism and greed almost. Interesting. Live the way. Yep. Definitely here to like teach a path. Unconditional love is coming out too. Some of you might be interested in looking at pile 2. This may pop up, but this one's popped up in pile 2 as well. Unconditional love. I feel like with this card, it's like really understanding that there's more to life than just the physical form, the physical, tangible stuff that we have in our lifetime. And I feel like you already understand that at some level, especially at a like higher level, subconscious level, your higher self. Definitely feels true. But I think live the way feels like you are meant to live in a challenging way or in a materialistic way or a very like closed off way, left or right wing, let's say, if it's politics, like very like rigid or very like interesting structures, right? And then coming out of that, like religious or whatever, cult, whatever, you know, whatever. Everyone goes through all sorts of different wacky and wild things in life. There was purpose and reason for that, and it's to overcome it and not be indoctrinated into the cycle of humanity's karmic cycle. That's how it feels. It's to break out of that and in some way teach others that they don't have to be slaves or victim to society, to their expectations from family, you know, all that kind of stuff, all of it. So you're meant to live the way for a purpose and come back to source, come back to what's really true and real. Oh, interesting. Okay. That was it's not heavy, but it's like heady. Like it feels you know, very true to your soul. Anyhow. Alright, so let's see why you incarnated at this time. It's almost to like learn a lesson and then immediately teach it to others. But normally it would take a few different cycles for people to grasp, or many cycles. This is part of you. You already knew it. You learnt it in this life again or repeat it in some way so you can help others. Yeah, you've already had this power within you. I do like the King of Cups coming through. It's like the inner fire with this Two of Wands, because it's really interesting because Two of Wands generally like the world, the globe, and like setting sights and wanting something more out of life. And I think that's true to you as well, but also finding that inner strength and power and through definite challenges, difficulties, but still being able to remain calm-minded. Like this, it feels like assertive without being aggressive, but also emotionally intelligent without being, you know, taken away with the fairies all the time. Yeah, the magic maker. Got the magician. This feels like a magician too. Seems like this energy looks dark, but being able to turn the energy into light. I think you probably work, I don't know. This is coming up for some of you. This may or may not be true for some of you. If you travel a lot, there might be purpose to your traveling. You might be going to areas to work on some of the energy in that area. Sometimes I notice that when I travel as well. I'm like, why am I staying here, then staying here, then staying here, then staying here? And it's like, I could just stay here the whole time. But I end up moving around and I'm like, don't notice what I'm doing or anything. But you know, at nighttime, I know in one area I slept for 12 hours and it was just a whole, like I felt good, refreshed, but like it was a lot of sleep. So, you know, you might be actually working on grids or like working some of the energy in areas, clearing some of the energy, whether you do it consciously or not. Doesn't matter. You don't have to like worry about it if you are this person, but this magician feels like that, working some of that negative energy out of an area and you turning it into like more usable, better energy. So you might notice that when you go to certain places, people perk up. They're not necessarily drained from you, but because you're working that area and cleansing it. Doing some interesting stuff that sounds dirty. But I was going to say you're doing some interesting stuff at nighttime, but what I mean by that is like sleep time. It does feel like you are also, you're doing a lot. You've already gone through some of the challenges in life, like the difficult ones, or you may be still in the process of that. But I think you're also doing stuff at night. If you've woken up with random bruises or scratches or weird things, it might be helping other people in their dream time, like a dream walker. There's a lot of woo-woo stuff coming through, which isn't necessarily woo-woo in the negative term. I mean it in the way of like some of the stuff is like out there. But it does feel true with this Five of Wands. There's like internal conflict, which I feel everybody probably has at times. But this one does feel like you're either like working the grids, working with energy in certain areas, whether you're conscious of it or not does not matter. It's not important. Or actually helping in dream time with, I don't know, feels like going into other people's dreams and helping them out of a fear or something like that. So you could be dealing with negative entities or energies. Wild. You're a wild one. But you're definitely here to live the way. I feel like you're probably from another planet originally. Like you'll be a starseed or something like that. You have to live the way to show the way. I will say you may not feel like you do much, or maybe you feel like you do a lot. Either way, you are doing a lot. You are doing exactly what you need to do. Ace of Swords, interesting. Shifting mindsets, shifting people's understanding of what the power of love can be. Yeah, you're here to show people the way. It's so interesting because it feels like a very chill soul, but it's just experienced, right? It's just very experienced. Yeah, fighting the good fight with the Justice card. Yeah, it's very clear. Fighting the good fight. Definitely a light worker. I mean, you don't need me to tell you that. Oh, King of Cups again. Yeah, look at this. You're like the chill ninja master, light worker ninja or something like that. It's really cool. This is an interesting one with these two kings. Regardless of gender is not played out necessarily with these kings in this particular style of reading. It's really like the fierceness, but also the emotional intelligence, like such an evolved soul coming through, an old soul coming through. And helping shift the mindset out of the spiral, like out of the, I mean, this shows like the Fibonacci spiral, but it really kind of more means to me showing the light or the way through what feels like a stuck cycle. It's like stretching it out and showing a more expanded dimension of a circle. It's like, okay, this leads down, leads towards light, leads towards this. Do you feel like you are fighting in the way, trying to balance the powers and bring back light into this world? That does feel really true. It's interesting because it feels like once you're done with this life, you'll know and you'll be done. You'll like help people towards a better, that they don't have to go spiraling down, they can go up into this new dimension, so to speak. It's interesting because it leads to the light regardless. It's like, you know, that 2 Earth idea or New Earth? It's like staying in the 3D or going to the 5D. It's like both lead towards light. However, you don't have to stay on the same density. It's like you go this way or that way. Either way, it's going to lead towards light, a lighter future. And I don't know everything about this. I don't probably know anything about this really. This is just how I feel the energy and can explain it in a 3D way. It's like some are going to head towards the light in the 3D, and I feel like for them that's okay. They're not necessarily supposed to be told where to go. They're just supposed to be shown options and then pick themselves. And I feel like for some reason it's coming through like lower densities have moved up into the 3D because this isn't the lowest, right? It's like 2D. That's why 2D was coming up. It's like some people are moving up into 3D, so that's good, and they get to stay here and experience the 3D. So not everyone is meant to like go to this next part, but if you've been like you, probably not you, but like the people around you potentially have been cycling in 3D, so it's like time to move up if they choose to. Ooh, yeah, interesting cards coming through. And I think that's where this one comes back to. It's like, it's more than just greed or materialism. It's really an expansion of moving into a more spiritual earth, more spiritual earth. No wonder you have unconditional trust. It's like, believe what you are doing is correct, because what you are doing is correct. Everything here shows that. Whatever you're doing, whether you're fighting demons, whether you're changing the earth grids, whether you're providing empathy and love in your environment, or all of it, right? You could be one of those wacky ones that are doing all sorts of crazy stuff in dream time or during the day. Whatever you're doing it. Keep doing you, because that is correct. What an interesting reading. I'm so glad I picked this topic now. It was something that I was like, I don't know about that, but it really has shone through. Anywho, thank you so much for letting me read for you, Pile 3. I have nothing but respect for you in this lifetime, and why you've come here. I feel like you've come here as a volunteer, in a sense, to really shift and help. And also there is aspects that you'll grow in, but you really have come to assist. So thank you. I'll see you next time. Take care of yourself. See you next reading.